Hi everyone, my name is David Kelly. I'm the Program Director for the eLearning Guild, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to another Twist Conversation. Today I'm pleased to be welcoming Karl Okamoto from ApprenNet. Welcome, Karl.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Can you take a moment and introduce yourself to our viewers?
Sure, my name is Karl Okamoto, as you just said. I am the co-founder and CEO of a company called ApprenNet. I'm also a faculty member at Drexel University in Philadelphia.
Excellent. And I want to thank you for joining me today. I wanted to have a conversation with you today about video. Video is something that is increasingly being used within the e-learning space, but you could make the argument that it's not being used to its full capacity. And I know you have a different approach to looking at video. I refer to it as the flipping the talking head. Can you give me an idea of what you mean by that and what that means to you?
Sure. Well, the idea behind flipping the classroom, which I think most people have heard of these days, is to take the traditional classroom structure where most of the learning occurs inside of the classroom in front of the teacher who's producing a lecture or providing instruction in the typical classroom structure, and move that outside of the classroom so that what you do is you provide that same lecture or instructional material first outside the classroom, and then when the students are with you together in the classroom, you engage in more experiential or interactive type of activities. And the usual use of video in that flipped classroom context is to record the lecture you would have given in the classroom, right? And I think we're used to that kind of use of video. It's something we see in lots of e-learning solutions. It's something we see in MOOCs, right, where you take what you otherwise would have done live in the classroom and you simply record it. You start your Camtasia file running and you just replay what you were going to say in front of the group, right? But I think the challenge with that, like most talking head video, as I call it, is that while listening to me live it may not be the most exhilarating thing you do. Listening to me on camera is probably even less so. I mean, the only benefit, I joke, is that you have a fast forward button that you don't have when I'm live, right? And so the question is, have you really added a lot by capturing my lecture, putting it on video, moving it to the front end, and isn't there a way to make that a little bit more powerful, a little bit more engaging? And the way we do that is by, quote, flipping the video.
Okay, so can you give me an example of what that would look like? Can you describe to me, as compared to what a traditional video was, what looks different about a flipped version of that?
Well, it's actually the video itself, the core lecture, the recording, it doesn't change. What changes is where you see it. Instead of having simply recorded me, what I would have said in the classroom, then shown it to you up front, now we only let you watch my lecture or my recording after you yourself, the learner, record your own video. Right? And so that's the difference. Right? And why we ask you to do that is we ask you to put yourself into some kind of scenario, some kind of role play. Right? So imagine you are teaching people about some kind of customer care challenge. Right? And instead of saying, hey everyone, watch me tell you how to give good customer service, the usual, the best way to treat customers, blah, 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 that kind of lecture. Instead, we're going to show you a scenario, some kind of customer service situation. Let's say a customer who's disappointed has come to complain. And we're going to say to you, now it's your turn. Record yourself using video technology, the phone on the camera on your phone. Record yourself dealing with this situation. Do that first before we let you watch the teacher tell you how they would have done
it. And what happens after that at that point?
Well, so now the idea is, hey, instead of just showing you the answer in advance, instead of just presenting to you and having you receive passively the information about how I would have dealt with that situation, now you're actually primed to care about what it is I have to offer, right? So you're now juxtaposing your own answer, the one that you committed to in rendering your own video, to the video I'm going to provide you with the so-called model answer, or the so-called teaching moment, right? And so instead of the usual reaction we get to typical talking head video, which is about 40 seconds of attention and very little retention, now you're going to watch that video from beginning to end, and you're actually going to remember it, because you're now watching it as a comparison to what you yourself thought the answer was supposed to be. So you now have skin in the game, some investment in the subject, and that's the theory behind flipping, if you will, the video. Have people start with their own video of the answer, and then let them watch the teachers.
It's really interesting. I know in my past experience where I've done a lot of role plays within a classroom environment, it seems a bit of an adaptation, but it almost seems like there's the potential to use the model that you're talking about to take that prototypical role play scenario and scale it in some ways, because now you're leveraging it through technology.
That is exactly the idea, right? And now there's one element that I haven't explained, and it addresses one big problem with that idea of scaling role play, right? So let's say you have, and this is a problem I encountered in my own classroom, and this is the genesis, if you will, of the whole solution we're working on, is I generally teach in a large lecture hall style class. I'll have 120, 150 students in front of me, right? And I really, really want them to learn through this method of first learning by doing, then learning by watching, right? But how do I get 120 people to learn by doing? How do I get them to role play, right? Imagine watching 119 of your classmates run through some kind of scenario. It'd be pretty tiresome. And so the beauty of this platform is it lets you do that offline, asynchronously, on your own, right? And then the challenge, though, is that now I have 120 submissions to look at, and I'm not going to do that. Your typical teacher is not going to do that. Your typical instructor is not going to have the time to do that. And so we add in another layer, and that is peer review, right? So the second step in our process is you load up your videos, you render your performance, and then you have peers watch each other's, some sample of each other's submissions, right? So let's say 120 people do it, you're going to watch 3 or 4. You're not going to watch the other 119. And through a peer review process, we say to the group, hey, let's figure out which collectively we decided are sort of best practice videos, the ones that we think float up as being most impressive for whatever reason. And we use a rubric grading system to do that. And then I will watch, as the instructor or whoever is running the program, will watch the 3, the 4, the 5 that the collective group has decided are exemplars, and we'll use them as the basis for giving feedback to the entire group. Right? And now, because we've used this peer review process and made the job of the instructor much more manageable, it is actually a scalable form of role play.
That's excellent, and it also becomes it sounds like a much more participatory process for the learner as well.
That's right. And what it also does is it adds another level to that motivation we were looking for to make you interested in the so-called model answer. Because now you've committed to the subject by doing your own performance. You've committed again by applying your judgment to what you saw your peers do. And now you're really anxious to see what the so-called expert is doing, because you want to compare that with what you did and what your friends did.
That sounds like a great and very different approach to video. And I know you're going to be exploring this in greater detail at DevLearn. I believe you're going to be sharing a case study of this in practice. Can you tell me a little bit about the session that you're going to be at DevLearn? If I'm an attendee, what's my experience going to be like?
Yep. Well, we're going to lay out this basic pedagogical method. That's what we think of it as, is as a method of using personal performance, learning by doing, peer review, and then expert demonstration. Now, that method can be used and recreated in many, many ways. In fact, I first did it by just using YouTube videos. But we're going to demonstrate a software system that we've put together that ties those things together in a particular neat package. And we're going to show some use cases that we've had using the system. And in particular, we're going to focus on one that was done in a restaurant company that has 85 locations around the world, has 3 or 4 people who all share the same job at one of those locations, but there are 500 of them worldwide, and how they use the platform to create this sort of social learning experience through role play online amongst this 500-person group.
It sounds like it's a great example of what we've been talking about being put into practice, which makes it so much more real for people. It sounds like it's going to be a really valuable session for people interested in learning about video.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that people will come with their own context, their own learning missions, and we can talk about how we could adapt what we've done in the customer service restaurant context, which we've also adapted in lots of different contexts, to theirs. So that's the conversation we're hoping.
Wonderful. Well, if you're interested in learning more about the session that Karl's been talking about, or any of the sessions that are going to be taking place at the DevLearn conference, visit our website, devlearn14.com. The DevLearn Conference and Expo takes place October 29th through 31st at the Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas. You'll have over 100 different presenters, including Karl and other well-known experts in the field who are going to help you develop your skills, and it's the best place to go to find out how you can use technology to help people learn. Get more details at devlearn14.com. Karl, I want to thank you for spending some time talking to me about video and this new approach to flipping the talking head.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
And I want to thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Twist Conversations. Take care, everybody.